I just drove from Seattle to this campsite at Fort Flagler State Park. The drive was a bit long with a lot of traffic like usual, but I did see quite a few deer on the way, and I am at a really quiet park just across from the very scenic Port Townsend. I'm not here to talk about the campsite though. I actually talked about the state park when I was on my drive up the Hood Canal about 2 years ago and shortly after I bought this car. Today, I am reviewing a camping tent. I've seen these advertised quite a bit, and so I wanted to see what they were all about. I tried doing some tent glamping earlier this year, back towards the summertime, and it went okay, but there were a lot of problems, especially with setup time. It just took forever to get the thing set up, and I'm hoping this tent will be a little bit different. So first off, this tent attaches to the back of the SUV, so it's actually an SUV tent, and it kind of sticks out. It has a room, and we'll just see what it looks like. It should be very interesting. We're actually almost at the winter solstice, so the sun's setting very close to 4 p.m. right now. So I'm going to be setting this tent up in the dark. There really just isn't that much daylight available for filming, and I had to do other things earlier today, so this will be a little bit dark, but I have a camera that can actually film in the dark now, and I also have several light sources which should help with filming and should also help once I get the tent set up. I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Western Rise. Western Rise makes quality apparel for the modern one-bag traveler so they can carry less and experience more. I have owned their Classic Evolution pants for over a year and absolutely love them. The Classic Evolution pants are men's casual travel pants that dresses up enough to get through any meeting, yet is rugged enough for any outdoor activity. They effortlessly replace jeans, hiking pants, and dress pants, allowing you to carry fewer clothes and travel lightly. The Classic Evolution pants are lightweight, durable, and pack well. It's the perfect travel pants to have in your bag. If you are interested in trying out the Evolution pants or any of their other apparel, go to westernrise.com/ColinAdventures15 and use the discount code ColinAdventures15. You will get 15% off your order. Links are below. Here's what the tent looks like in the bag. It is actually very compact, much more compact than the tent I set up earlier this year, and I think it's a little bit lighter. In fact, I think it's a lot lighter. I think it's maybe 30, 40 pounds, something like that, but it's light enough that you can throw it in the back of the car, no problem. Again, this is an SUV tent, and apparently it can be set up separately, but for right now, we're going to set it up how it's intended on the back of my Crosstrek. So aside from my headlamp, I think I'm going to turn the light on my Blue Eddy. I don't use this very often, but when I do use it, it's very handy. There we go. So this is the area where I'm going to be setting up the tent, just right behind my car, just a flat grassy spot. I don't know exactly how big this tent is, so that's going to be something that we're going to find out together here. And in case you're wondering, this tent was made by some company called Timber Ridge. Don't know anything about them, but the packaging looks pretty nice. So here is the tent, all set up. It looks like it's about 10 foot by 8 foot by 87 inches. So it's actually a fairly tall tent. I should easily be able to stand up inside that. And it's a pretty big size room. These are the instruction manuals, which actually is really nice and really well written. So that's kind of unusual for me. But you can see actually, in some of the pictures, they have a Subaru Crosstrek, kind of like mine. So clearly it must fit. Okay, so here we have all the parts for the base. So the main tent is right there. I hope I have it facing the right direction so the opening's towards the back of my car. I think so, but I don't know that for sure. And then we have 4, I think those are aluminum tubes. And then we have a variety of sizes of, looks like carbon fiber with aluminum fittings. I don't have any idea how this all goes together. I'm guessing these larger, thicker aluminum tubes, those are going to be the main supports for the tent, but I don't actually know that for sure, so unfortunately I'm going to have to actually look at the instruction manual because I don't think there's any reasonable way to figure this out without just randomly guessing. Okay, so I think I figured it out. Looks like you have to put in those aren't actually carbon fiber, they're fiberglass poles. So I need to get those put in first, and then I was right, the aluminum poles do support the rest of the tent, but you have to get the roof up first, which is good because it's starting to rain a little bit. Well, I'm doing my best to follow these instructions, but clearly something's gone wrong here, so I need to refer to the instructions again. I did suggest using 2 people to set the tent up. Obviously, there's only one of me, but it's getting there. And I think the biggest thing is I discovered that it's probably rotated 90 degrees, so I need to rotate this tent somehow, because this part here goes over the back of the car. So that's what I have to figure out, is how to get this rotated around without the whole tent falling over. We're making some good progress now. So I have the tent rotated around. It's standing up looking more or less like a tent, and the opening for the tent where it attaches to the car is on the correct side. So I don't know how the rest of this works, but I have to go back to the manual and figure it out. Okay, so we had a major rain squall come through and soak me and everything else, and I did figure out more or less how this tent goes together. So one thing that's not in the instructions is you have to put the stakes down on the corners of the tent while you're putting up the tent. In fact, that should probably be the first thing that you do, because otherwise this tent has no stability and it'll just twist and then fall down. And especially once you put the Rainfly on top, there's just no way that you can keep it up. It just tries to fall over the moment you touch it. So those are a must. You absolutely have to put those stakes in. The other thing, you can see there's something going on up there. Something's gone wrong with the way the Rainfly is sitting there. There is a fiberglass pole that runs through that section just over the doorway here. And for whatever reason, it looks like that. So I'm going to try adjusting that a little bit, and then we'll go from there. So I got the Rainfly situated. Apparently that piece there, the tube, was just a little twisted. You can see it fits into the main part of the tent right here. And there's an angle that goes in just kind of on the corner there. And if that gets twisted, then the whole thing doesn't work. But I think we have it all figured out now, and we're ready to move on to the next step, which is opening up this part here to the inside of my car. Okay, so here we have it. The tent is all set up. It looks okay, but there are some problems. So first off, this piece that goes over the tailgate here, it's mostly held in with just elastics, but it has a few straps on it. So one of the straps goes up to this suction cup, and in theory, so this part of the tent here goes to this cable thing, the strap, which leads to a suction cup, which in theory is supposed to go on the front of the windshield or something. In reality, this doesn't stick to anything that I can find, so I don't know exactly what that's supposed to do. Back here we have this strap here, which is supposed to wrap around the rear wheel of the car, and in theory this buckles into this buckle right here, so that way it holds things nice and tight against the car. Those buckles don't match up, so there's no way to put that buckle into the other buckle. I don't know what happened there. It could be that it's just really dark and I can't see what I'm doing, but I think there may be some problems with this tent. The little weird thing is I have this leftover fiberglass pole. It doesn't show up in the instructions anywhere, and I haven't found any pocket for it. So I don't know what this is supposed to be for. I suppose at some point I'm probably going to find it, but I just don't know where it is right now. I think I have everything set up as much as I can. So there were problems setting this up. It took way longer than I expected. There was a major rainstorm in the middle of it, and I'm not sure how a few things work. Maybe they just don't work. I just don't know. We'll find out in the morning during daylight, but I have it put together enough now that it's usable for the night. So let me show you what I have going on inside. So you can see this side here has a major opening, and then when we walk inside, you can see the back of my car is back in there. And there is this kind of skirt that goes between the tent and the back of the car. And it mostly covers everything. The only place it doesn't really cover is down here. It is elastic, but if I left that open, I can guarantee I would have small animals in my tent the next morning. So when I go to sleep, and I'm definitely sleeping in the car, not in the tent, I will be zipping up the tent to make sure that nothing else can get inside. Bad thing that happened during setup is lots of water got on the inside because I was spending most of my time trying to get the Rainfly on while it was raining, and the tent was just falling over. So there are just huge puddles all over the inside of the car. Big one there, just water everywhere. So I am actually wearing my shoes inside the tent, which feels completely wrong. I have no idea how I'm going to get this water out because I don't really have that much space in my apartment to dry out tents. So that's a problem for another day though. I just won't be using this space without my shoes on. So from the inside of my car, this is what the tent looks like. So you can see that it is actually huge in there. This is probably a bigger space than the living room in my apartment. To be fair, the living room in my apartment is tiny, as is the rest of my apartment, but this is still absolutely enormous. And that big white thing in front of me is actually a projector screen. Down here, the projector screen actually has that last fiberglass pole. I found where it went, and it just ties onto a couple of points up at the top corners of the tent. But this is actually a really huge screen, and I found a cheap projector that I would like to try on this screen and see how it works. Well, I found this little mini projector for really cheap. Apparently you can get these things for almost nothing these days, and it actually works pretty well. I tested it at home, and the picture is alright, and this is what the menu looks like. So you can scroll through the menu, you can see it nicely on the screen in this tent. So the screen does work pretty well. It would be nice if I ironed that out somehow, but obviously I'm at a campsite and I don't have an iron with me. But you can see, if you wanted to watch a movie, this is the way to go. Always I managed to forget something, and this time it was the adapter to attach the projector to my iPad or my phone. So unfortunately I can't actually play anything on it tonight, but still pretty cool that I'm even able to do this at all at a campsite. That's alright, because I have a few things I need to do before I go to bed here anyways. I've got to eat supper, and I have some more work to do for other projects. But I want you to stick around for the morning, and we'll see what this whole setup looks like in the daylight. Well, it's the next morning here at the campsite, and everything held together pretty well overnight. I did close the trunk on my car while I was sleeping because it's almost freezing out here and I wanted to stay a little bit warmer. But you can see everything's still standing, all the stakes are in place, and overall I think it actually turned out okay. Before I talk about the pros and cons of this tent, I wanted to show you these stakes. These are the stakes that come with it. They have actually 2 extra, and they're actually really beefy, they're really high quality, and easy to put into the ground. Even in fairly rocky ground like we have here, I was able to get all of them in without too much trouble, and they really don't want to pull out. They have a nice little cap on the top here, and you can see that it's really easy to tie the lines to the tent, and so I really like these stakes. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of this tent and who I think this tent is for. So this tent is actually reasonably well made. I think there are issues with the design, but in general it actually is very functional. It'll stand up in most weather. However, this tent is clearly not an all-weather tent. You can't use this for seasons. There's a big vent in the top, and that's great during most of the seasons, but during the winter it's just going to be too cold. There's no reasonable way to heat this tent, and it's just not meant for that. Inside, the tent stayed fairly dry. Having said that, this material I know is not 100% waterproof. Most tent material actually isn't. But in a heavy rain, I would not want to be in this tent. Heavy winds, I don't think this tent has the structural integrity to stand up. If you're a single person that's used to car camping, having this tent does add an extra space that has privacy. It's not a huge concern where I live because there's so many trees and things that already add privacy. But if you're like out in the desert, I really could have used this when I was out in New Mexico a couple years ago. This would have been the perfect addition to my car camping setup. If you are a family that wants to go car camping and just need extra space for kids or something, this would be absolutely perfect. Couples, I think, again, if you're in a smaller vehicle like mine, 2 people really don't fit in the back of my Crosstrek sleeping. So having this extra space would be really perfect. And of course, having this nice projector screen is actually really cool for families or couples that want to watch a movie when they're out camping. As for these buckles that go on the back of the car and are supposed to attach to the wheel but don't actually hook to anything, and also these suction cups that don't stick to curved surfaces very well, I think that such a big deal because if you're out in heavy enough weather where those would matter, the rest of the tent is probably going to fall over. So I wouldn't be too concerned about those particular failings. As for this little tunnel that connects the tent to the car, I think this actually is a lot more valuable than you might imagine. It does provide a easy access between the car and the tent. It makes for a place to sit. And whether you're sleeping in your car or you have a shelving unit in your car, gives you really good access between the indoor space and your car, which is also an indoor space, I suppose, but just an extra room basically to the tent, or you could consider the tent an extra room for the car. So I do actually like the tunnel. A lot of these products, I think it just depends on your needs for a tent. If you're wanting an all-weather, really heavy-duty tent that you can camp in the snow, this is probably not the best option. If you're needing something that needs to be heated, again, also not the best option. But if you're just looking for a basic tent that has a lot of room for people or gear or whatever, and you're not going out in really heavy weather, this tent is actually really good. So if you're not planning on going out in really heavy weather and you're just looking for a basic tent that is big and attaches to the back of your car, that's a tent that does all those things really pretty well. Take down the tent and get out of here. Alright, so I have it all packed up. I suspect it doesn't fit into the bag because the fabric is all wet, but it doesn't fit into the bag, so I'm going to take this home, dry everything off, and then hopefully the fabric will shrink back down once it's dry again. I know a lot of fabrics will do that, and that's probably all that's going on here because this wasn't packaged up super tight earlier. It just doesn't fit right now because everything's a little bit swollen.